Welcome, everybody. We're just letting folks join the Zoom. So it's really my pleasure to welcome everybody to the second installment of this series of Pensando Xībānyá roundtables. Thank you so much for joining us today, especially those of you who are at the first session as well. So before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors. This event series has been generously supported by a number of departments, programs, and centers. At Stony Brook University, we're very grateful for the support of the Graduate Student Organization, the Department of Hispanic Languages and Literatures, the Department of Asian and Asian American Studies, the Women's Gender and Sexuality Department, the Institute for Globalization Studies, and the Charles B. Wang Center. This series is also sponsored by the Department of World Languages and Literatures at Skidmore College, my home institution. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mary Kate Donovan, and I'm an assistant professor of Spanish at Skidmore College. It's my pleasure to welcome you all today and to introduce our moderator and start the panel off. So before we get started, I just want to take a brief moment to acknowledge the recent terrorist attack near Atlanta, Georgia, that killed 8 people, including 6 women of Asian descent. So this is just one example of many in a year of increasing anti-Asian sentiment and violence, which has been fueled in large part by the former US president's insistence on racializing the coronavirus as Asian. Now, this anti-Asian sentiment is by no means a new phenomenon, however. It's built on more than a century of harmful stereotypes and white supremacy that have portrayed Asian and Asian American communities in the US and elsewhere as contagion. So it's our hope that this roundtable series will contribute to a transnational conversation about the impact of anti-Asian rhetoric, both in times of COVID and beyond. However, it's also a central goal of this project not only to denounce hatred and prejudice, but also to celebrate and uplift the work of artists, authors, and activists, and educators of Asian descent. Three of whom, are here with us today. And I'm very excited to be in conversation with them. So for those of you looking for resources on how to support Asian and Asian descendant communities, Moisés and I are working on adding a section to our website, it's almost done, where you will be able to find some links that might be useful. Some are US based, some will be focused on Spain and other parts of Latin America. So you'll be able to find that at pensandoxibanya.com or .com after today's event. So without further ado, let's get started with the main event for today. So similar to our first session, we'll dedicate the first 60 minutes or so to a conversation between our panelists, and then we'll open the floor for questions. So the chat is open. Feel free to drop your questions there. I'll keep track of them for the Q&A. You can also share comments and other thoughts. So our roundtable today will be moderated by my colleague, collaborator, and friend, Moisés Hassan Bendahan. He is a doctoral candidate in the Department of Hispanic Languages and Literatures at Stony Brook University. His research studies the visualization of ethnicity in comics and graphic novels, focusing on the depiction of an individual experiences of Asian American and Latinx communities in the US. His work is currently funded by the Humanities New York Public Humanities Fellowship, through which he is implementing a project called Empowering Through Visual Narratives, a workshop series aimed at middle school students, which involves reading and creating comics. So please join me in welcoming our panelists, who will be introduced by Moisés.
Thank you very much, Mary Kate. Welcome all to Writing on Diaspora. Mary Kate already explained into the second installment of Pensando Xībānyá. We have here the art of Quan, who was in the first panel, but I'm going to briefly introduce the panelists that we have today. Okay, we have Berna Wang, Paloma, Chen, and Susana Dia. Berna Wang is a poet and translator who specializes in human rights and Tibetan Buddhism. Wang's publication includes 2 books of poetry, Pequeños Accidentes Caseros, and La Mirada Oblicua. And her writing was featured in the anthology La Escritura Plural, 33 poetas entre la dispersión y la continuidad de una cultura. Her latest work, Cosas que me explica mi madre, was funded by the grant for the literary creation sponsored by the Madrid regional government. This is one of examples of Berna's work, Cosas que me explica mi madre, and you could find it on Tusanaje, tusanaje.net, sorry. Paloma Chen is a journalist, writer, and cultural manager. Crecer en Menchina is one of her most famous work. It's a piece of investigative journalism published in El Salto. Chen currently works at the transnational migrant platform of Europe. She also writes for press outlets including El País and Apunt. Chen is a collaborator with Tusanaje, a platform created by and for Chinese descent communities in Spanish-speaking countries. In 2020, she was awarded with the Premio Nacional de Poesía Viva, L de Lírica, for her poetry, which explores intercultural identity. You will find Crecer con un Chino in YouTube. It's a series of interviews with people from Chinese descent. And last but not least, we have Susana Dia. And it's my pleasure to have her here, especially because I already have her as a guest in my class last semester. Susana is a digital journalist who specializes in human rights and international relations. Her works features on racial and ethnic identity, mental health, and gender inequality. She has worked for content curator at Update and a reporter for a range of publications, including Business Insider, El País, and El Mundo. Jay is also a documentary filmmaker who wrote and directed the documentary Chinese Diaspora y Bananas, the first documentary who explores Chinese Spanish identity, which has produced in 2015 and released the following year. So you could find the documentary in YouTube, Documental Chiñoles y Bananas, who has been subtitled recently to different languages, and I think Susana could say a little bit more about that. So thank you, Berna, thank you, Paloma, and thank you, Susana. Is there anything else that you want to say about your work, about your current work?
I wanted to say that it's tusanaje.org. O-R-G. Yeah.
Susana, the documentary was translated to different languages, right? Recently.
Yeah, because it's been like 5 years since it was released. So I wanted to look at the past, but also to contribute to the work to reach people, not only Spanish speakers, but Hispanic speakers, but also like no matter which country you are, maybe you are experiencing the same, and maybe you are not a Chinese descendant, but you're curious about it and you want to get to know stories like this. So that's why I added subtitles. Of course, English is one of them because there's so many English speakers, but there's also Turkish and there's also Polish. I have to add Polish, and it's thanks to people that that are friends of mine and that they trust me when I contacted them, like, can you please maybe help me a little bit with this project 5 years later? But yeah, that's it.
Great. I think that's something very interesting because one of the feedbacks that I have been receiving both from your event and the previous event on Pensando Xībānyá was feedback from my students telling me that they feel listened and represented when they are attending to these events. I don't know if there's anything that you would like to add, Berna?
About, pardon me,
about your
because the volume of your
Okay.
device is not. It's,
Okay, I'm going to try to keep the volume.
okay. Thank you.
Is there anything that you would like to add about your bio? Anything that I missed or anything?
It's okay. It's okay.
So let's start with the first question. This table is titled Writing and Diaspora. During the first roundtable of the series, we discussed some of the ways in which diaspora can be a problematic term. For others, la diáspora en España is an important reference point. What does this term mean for you? And what does it mean to write from the diaspora?
I think it's too general a term, diaspora. And as Quan said last month, I think it's more applicable to the to our parents' generation, maybe. I mean, because the people who, like us, were born in a different country, we have different feelings about our identity. For example, I don't consider myself Chinese. I consider myself Spanish of Chinese origin. And for example, I've never introduced myself saying where my parents are from, because no Spaniard would do that. So it's not necessary, I think. You know, so diaspora, I think, is more for the generation of immigrants who came to Spain or to other countries. You know, that's my opinion.
Paloma, what about you?
I agree that it's complicated term because it's like, I don't know, maybe when you say second generation, I mean, it's problematic because after all, yeah, we are Spanish and we are Spaniards, and yeah, maybe we have Chinese origins and Chinese family, but we consider ourselves Spanish. Still, I quite like the term diaspora because like, even though it's very general, at the same time, I feel like can be inclusive because can be, you know, yeah, you can be like, yeah, my parents, but also if you feel comfortable with the term, maybe you also can use it. Maybe if you are an adoptee, maybe if you are someone that migrated when you were a student, or maybe, so I don't know, maybe like different profiles can be there because yeah, diaspora is a very like general term. So yeah, I don't know, maybe because I really sometimes I like to explain like my story, my family story and everything. I quite like the term.
Susana?
I think I like in the middle of them because I really do understand the statement that is really important that Berna is saying to us, to all of us, that we were born here. So why do we have to still explain ourselves in terms of our parents, that they are migrants? Yes, of course, and we are proud of it. But at the same time, we are not migrants. We don't come from somewhere else. We are here. So we were born here. We were raised here. Our minds are really connected to Spanish people, you know, to Spanish culture. But at the same time, I understand Paloma's point that the power of using diaspora is connecting. It's connecting us to our parents and connecting and recognizing, acknowledging our parents' story, but also acknowledging adoptees' voices as part of the diaspora, and also connecting with people that maybe they migrated, but they are students from China, so it's a different profile than our parents. So I think diaspora is very powerful in that aspect because it doesn't really focus on individuals and personal circumstances. It connects us all, despite our specifics, despite our concrete situations. So for me, a lot of terms to present myself. Yes, I am part of the Chinese diaspora, of the East Asian diaspora, of the Asian diaspora. I'm Spanish with Asian parents, with Chinese parents. I am a daughter of Chinese migrants, Chinese economics migrants. I reivindicate all of them. I am all of them. I am like a mix of cultures. I am like not in any of the cultures at the same time. So I think for me, it's using everything we have in our hands. And I think I don't deny any of those aspects. Yes, I am a daughter of my parents, and of course, even though I was born here, their culture or culture influenced me and influenced who I am. But also, I am my own human being, and also I have my own opinion and my own way of interacting with the world and my own culture. No, Paloma and Berna said, I think Paloma, yes, Berna, I don't know, like we are of a third culture. It's like everywhere, nowhere, I don't know. So for me, it's that, no? I use diaspora because I think it's powerful, but I also reivindicate myself as a Spanish full-time citizen with my parents that are Chinese. So, wow, surprise. That's it.
But you have talked about an intergenerational connection at the same time.
Yeah.
Connect as well as together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because if you use diaspora with Chinese, with Asia, then you're like engrossing, not engrossing, but you are like looking for the connections, looking for the same nexus with the same the things that unite us. But also using only diaspora is connecting all of us, all of us. It doesn't matter if you are Asian or not. It doesn't matter, So I think that's a part of why I reivindicate diaspora too, because it's looking outside my own experience and looking for connection with other cultures and other backgrounds, migrant backgrounds, experiences.
I would like to go continue with the conversation about diaspora. I think there's something interesting about the existence of not one single Chinese diaspora, but several. And we already mentioned Tusanaje, which is a digital platform that brings together various Chinese diasporas in Peru and other Spanish-speaking countries. Could you speak about how learning about the experience of other diasporic identities, other Chinese Americans or Chinese Peruvians, has influenced in your writing?
Yeah, so when I started in my teenage years to think about identity and everything, yeah, in first time, for example, the Chinese Americans were a great example for me. Like I really liked, I don't know, like they were in YouTube posting videos, they were writing poetry, they were, and I felt less isolated, and I could really relate about their struggling with languages, with culture shock with their own parents, with not being able to explain some things. And yeah, I don't know, that really inspired me. Like I said, okay, I really want to do some things like this here in Spain, because actually in Spain I didn't see any of this, like never. And yeah, after that, when I was in the university, I spent 1 year living in China, and there I met Rodrigo, which is the founder of Tusanaje, and he was a Chinese Peruvian. And yeah, I just learned so much from him. He explained to me how was the evolution of the Chinese diaspora there in Peru, and obviously yeah, and we really like to compare, right, the stories of our countries. He said like, oh, this is like you are talking with your grandson, you know, because he was the son of a Peruvian from Chinese origins, so he didn't really speak Chinese, but still he really was curious about his identity. And yeah, and he explained to me how were the differences, right? Because Peru, obviously, because of colonization and because of a lot of other things, have a whole different story. The Chinese arrived earlier in the 18th century. But yeah, but in Peru, there are a lot of people that think, oh, here there is no racism because we are all mixed, right? And he said, no, that's bullshit, you know. Like, okay, we may be okay, we are all mixed, but still I need to, you know, reivindicate that yeah, that identity. So, you know, Tusanaje pours because of that, to give visibility to the culture of the Chinese descendants.
Um, it's interesting because I had the conversation about Peru at my office too. So when you were talking about Asian Chinese Americans, were you thinking about any reference in particular, or just?
Yeah, so actually there are a few YouTube channels that I really liked. For example, one is Off the Great Wall. I really like them, and actually they have been not posting videos during the last 3 years, but they came back because of nostalgia of pandemia, and I really recommend their videos. Also the Fang Bros, also Stephen Lim, and they were people that they were they made divulgar, you know, about the culture of their parents, and they were like seeking about their identity. And then also about poetry. So baton poetry, they had like great poets like Franny Choi, for example. She's a Korean American poet, and yeah, when I first heard her, I just blew my mind, you know, that you could do that with the language and with the elements of the culture of your parents and against the racism of society. And yeah, that was really inspiring.
Great. Berna and Susana, do you feel also any influence on other Chinese diasporas?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I had a reference. I've got a friend I met in Taiwan many years ago, who's Chinese, Cuban, American, whatever. And I mean, he has like three grandparents, Chinese grandparents, and one from Santander in Spain. And he has her grandmom, her Spanish grandmom knows, he says. And he's yeah, we met in Taiwan, and he sent me, I mean, in the 80s, at the beginning of the 80s, and he sent me The Woman Warrior by Maxine Hong Kingston. And Maxine Hong Kingston is God, I mean, a goddess to me. Because there were no references, literary or cultural references in my time. I mean, now I'm a lot older than Susana and Paloma, so I'm in fact I'm an older generation. So my circumstances are very different, and at the same time are very similar. It's very funny. But in my time, I mean, I didn't have, I didn't know Chinese children when I was a kid. And no literature. My references are the Spanish references of my generation. That's why I think I feel more Spanish than anything else. Uh, because I had the same, you know, the education and everything. Spain in the 60s, 70s, the social, the Catholic, you know, the dictatorship, the underground politics, being in a communist group. being arrested like all my friends. I mean, that's a very strong background to me. And that's why I feel more connected to the Spanish Civil War than to the Japanese occupation of China, for example. So Maxine Hong Kingston was like, wow, someone who's writing about her experience as a daughter of Chinese parents in another country. And then I read Amy Tan. I don't like her. I mean, after Maxine Hong Kingston, Amy Tan is like, I don't know, too shallow for me. It's my opinion. So, and no one else, because I mean, my identity is not central in my work, in what I do, what I am. I mean, the same way I don't introduce myself saying my parents came from China or are Chinese, because I mean, in a classroom when I begin and I'm a teacher, so when I introduce myself, no one of my students will say, and my parents are from Zaragoza or from, Sevilla or from Barcelona. That's nonsense. So I don't feel like I have to, and I don't want to, because I don't feel it's necessary. So I don't have much Chinese diaspora references, cultural ones, because I don't think I need them. And now, I mean, now that I know the generation of Paloma and Susana and Chenta and Quan, they are my references. They are my role models, because they are a new generation. They are doing a lot of interesting things. I'm very, very interested on their point of view, on what they do, on how they feel. I mean, it's because it's similar, but at the same time it's different. And so that's a strange, weird place I am, but
I think that Berna is very humble from you to say that we are your references. I feel like, oh no.
But you are. I mean,
because for me, what you have experienced it, being a Chinese, being a daughter of Chinese, of Taiwan people here, and living that part of the Spanish history that is very hard to live, and your talent and all the way you have been through, I think you are one of the big references, and I think it is really an honor for me. I'm speaking for myself, but I think I speak for Paloma too, and for Quan and Chenta, for all of us. It's like we are really lucky to have you, and to tell us like I want to listen your experience or your experiences. I want to listen what you're feeling. I know it's not the same story, but at the same time, we have been struggling with a lot of things. I think we didn't have it easy, and to listen to you say that, I don't know, that you want to listen to us too, it's like it's really emotional for me, because it's so great. It's
well,
maravilloso.
I mean, you are the first. I mean, I met you maybe 3 years ago, 2 years and a half. You are the first Chinese friends I have, and I'm 63. Can you imagine that? I mean, so the spirit, and I met Quan and her work many years ago, not personally, but I contacted her in Twitter, and I was telling her it's amazing that 40 years later you are having the same experiences, or some of part of the same experiences I had. And but at the same time, I mean, I'm your parents' age. I mean, so it's different. It's different, and it's weird, and I don't know. I don't think I could be a reference for anybody, because my situation and my circumstances were very exceptional. And I remember an interview with Ita for her work, Chino Cappuccino. And we came to the conclusion that when I was a kid, my siblings and I were like oh, how cute you are, because we were like just a few like 4 or 5 children, Chinese children, and now you are the yellow peril. And that's different. I mean, you have experienced more racism than me, probably, I think, because we were the cute Chinese sometimes. And so there are so many things different and so many things similar that it's very, I'm feel really, really honored to be your friend. I'm very happy to have met you. And, you know, it's such a, it's a very weird experience, don't you think so? I mean,
it is, but at the same time, it makes sense. You know, it's strange, I think, because we are still not used to it. We are still not used to share. You are still not used to not be like the Asian friend of the group or something like that. So,
yeah,
but I think we are living an interesting moment, and it's true that maybe before it was like the cute kind of Asian person, but now that
yeah. Someone is saying that Leila Shan is saying, and I agree that being the cute Chinese is also patronizing. It is, because it's the same thing as thinking of you like the I don't know. There are some
Exotic.
stereotypes about Chinese women, and I've experienced that. So yeah, and being the cute Chinese kid is also, it's not, they're not seeing you as a person, they're seeing you as.
Did give me a way to enter into the conversation without interrupting the beautiful moment. So something you were talking about the difference between the generations, and I think something very interesting relating to the reference that Paloma just gave is the inclusion of the internet in this conversation, because most of you got connected through digital platforms, as far as I can tell, right? And guess that this has the connection, but it also has the perpetuation of some of the stereotypes and some of the exposure of um, some racism online. I don't know if your experience were more positive or more negative in this sense.
Hi. I think social media has been really powerful and has been really useful to connect us all. I think it's a space that somehow, strangely, it's intimate, but at the same time, as you said, it's a public exposure, a major exposure of your experiences. But yeah, I think it's important to have that space and to take care of it and to reappropriate it even nowadays that they are not so good for us, maybe, or mental health. But I think it's really important, because I think there are so many people that experience the same as us, but they don't have anyone to talk about it. So social media gives them the possibility to do it. So there are people like Paloma, Berna, and me that we are more used to talk in public, like today. But there are so many people that they are not used to it. They are afraid of it. They are shy. They don't think that it matters what they are living, but it matters. And so yeah, for me, it has been a good experience in the last 2 years, or maybe, 2 years. It's not been so great, because it's like I try to explain something, and then there's like people giving their opinion from the outside, and it's like you haven't read about it at all. You even haven't read my article about it. There's the link is there. You can read it.
Yeah, I
but
came to the conclusion that I never argue in the social media, because it's useless. I mean,
yeah, kind
it's
of.
fun or
Yeah.
something related to work, but not arguments, because
Yeah.
I'm very good blocking people.
But
I'm really, really good.
I still try sometimes to answer them, and I still try sometimes to like, okay.
Because you are young and you have time, but I'm old and I don't have time to spend with these people, to educate people.
Yeah.
Not always, at least. I mean.
Yeah. But in my case, I try to reach them with the things I write, and I try to reach them with, okay, I listen to you, I understand your point, but maybe there's a lack of information in your life. But still, there are people that, if I may say it, they are a pain in the ass. It's like, oh my God. So there's a point that, I just react like Berna, like, okay, this is pointless. There's no conversation going on at all. There's no exchange of ideas at all. It's someone random behind an anonymous profile, just saying stuff to me, just making me lose my time, and my time is valuable too.
So
my time, my energy is valuable too.
Don't feed the racist.
I have a follow-up question in this matter, but taking it to a more professional environment. In a previous conversations, Paloma has alluded to the idea of asumir la responsabilidad, taking the responsibility. In a sense of, in reference to the sense of responsibility to visualize your experience as a Spaniard of Chinese descent, can you speak about the tension between the personal desire or need to speak and write about one's racialized identity and external or societal pressure to always focus on this facet of one's identity? Paloma?
It's been complicated because it's like the whole of my life has been, okay, so you are the Chinese girl of the town, right? So when I speak with you, it's just like, oh, so where are your parents from, or or the Chinese people, what they eat, or what are their costumbres, and I don't know, it's like now my sense is that after that I just like specialize in that, specialize in talk all the time about racism and about Chinese issues, and then I write poetry, and then my poetry is about that, and everything is about that, and I don't know, it's complicated, and there is a conflict there. Like, for example, the other day I was interviewed, and then the photographer told me, so where in the city do you want to be photographed, right? And he was like, tell me a space in the city that is special for you. And actually for me, the Chinatown in my city is super, super special because I really like be there eating food like all the time. But I was like saying, no, oh my God, they are interviewing me like a poet. And I asked them to go to Chinatown and I'm going to be the Chinese poet in Chinatown. And it was like, am I feeding stereotypes in that sense? And it was like, should I just, go out to a library or to a bookshop or something like that? And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult. I have that sense all the time, and sometimes, yeah, I allude to the term of responsibility because sometimes, I don't know, there is an activity and someone have to speak, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to speak because I feel like there are some things that need to be told that it's not being, saying, and I want to say them. But yeah, I really hope that as time goes by and we are more and more, and the daughters and sons of migrants just speak out for themselves, we are going to be more and more voices, obviously.
Berna and Susana, do you want to say something in this regard?
I feel the same all the time. There's like this sense of duty, like this kind of responsibility that you're always second guessing your actions. You're always thinking about yourself, not only as oneself, but as I don't know, like a representation for other Asian people. So there's like, in my case, as a journalist, and also as an active user of social media, because I write in social media, I'm very open about my experiences and about myself. So every time I interact, every time I communicate, there's this sense that I'm not always, even if I say it out loud, like I only speak from my point of view. I know that deep inside people are listening to me, and deep inside they are kind of making it a whole picture. So there's this constant, sometimes it feels like a burden. There's this constant feeling that there's a responsibility, that you have a responsibility. And especially if you speak about migration, especially if you speak about identity, you have to be really careful. And as far as I know, as far as I feel it in my body and in my mind, it sometimes it's kind of, it's really big for us. And especially because Paloma, Berna, Quan, Chen, told it, we don't have like really like strong references here in Spain. So we are all pioneers. We are all like kind of trying to understand us and trying to understand us in the society and trying to understand us as authors, because Paloma was speaking about her poems, that they are really great. You have to listen to her, please. And Berna has a lot of experience.
But I'm not writing about my identity. I never felt the necessity, the need to write about that. I don't feel that responsibility. Maybe because I'm older. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm representing a burden. No, I don't. I'm me.
But maybe because in your, when you were growing up, people didn't kind of, how to say it? They didn't point it out so much, maybe. But as far as I know, I don't feel like I did have a choice not to speak about my identity.
I was the China Popular in college. I mean, popular in this both senses. It was a pun, but I never took that responsibility. I don't want it, and I have the right to say no. I'm not representing anybody apart from myself. And that's what I've always done. So yeah, I don't know, maybe because of my circumstances, or maybe because I'm older and I mean, I just don't feel it. I just don't feel it.
That's
Maybe because of
okay.
my
That's
therapist.
okay.
You should, I don't know, but it's not my responsibility. I mean, I'm myself. I don't represent a whole community. I'm not even sure there is a community as such. I mean, there are groups, there are different persons, there are different. So how can I represent? How can I speak? I simply don't,
But
because I don't know.
don't feel, in my case, it's not like, I don't feel like I did it on my own. I feel like, in my case, I made the documentary, I watched the documentary, I edited the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And in my case, I thought that they interviewed me, but they didn't focus on my work, they focused on me. So that started that. That started me having to explain myself all the time.
Yeah, I know. I lived in Orihuela, a small city in the east, La Comunidad Valenciana, I mean, for 6 years. And when I was in the local TV, speaking about human rights or literature or whatever, everybody was next day like, oh, you speak really well Spanish. And then I had a radio show with a couple of friends about human rights too. And I loved it because next day everybody was like, oh, it was really interesting what you said. And because they wasn't seeing me, so they were listening to me. So, and yeah, I know what is, and it's different to live in a small place or living in a big city like Madrid. I don't know. I think it's depends on the circumstances. I never felt the need of writing about my identity. Never. I write about love, about pain, about heartbreak, about, I don't know, daily life in a small town and daily life in the city. I mean, all the uh, classic subjects, and because I don't feel the need of. And my last work, I was writing about my mother, because I felt like, but it's not like, I don't feel compelled to talk about my identity more than talking about, I don't know, my marriage, my son, my being a mother, being a teacher, or living in a place with a lot of Roma people.
I think that's what we are trying to make a point about that. We have to write not to talk all the time about racism, not to talk all the time about identity. For example, for myself as a journalist and as trying to start to be an author, as both of you too, I do have the right to talk and to act and to write about different things, because we are not one thing and we are not one topic. But in my case, because of the documentary and everything, for me it was kind of imposed. And at first I kind of didn't know what was happening and kind of reacted like in opposition, maybe like, oh my God, why? But now, like, I made it my own. Like, okay, you want to talk about it? Then we will have a talk about it, So I think that was my process. And it was like, okay, do you want to reach me and do you want to assist you writing about it? then I will write about it, but on my own, you know. So I think in my case, it was that. And I think what you are living and your work, that's the way it should be for all of us all the time. Not feeling the need or not having to all the time justify our work or kind of work.
Yeah,
or
something
kind
like
of writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's because I didn't have a community of Chinese descendant people. You know, it's like I was what's the word? Chenta told me once, I was a Spaniard all the fucking time. So I look different, and sometimes there are funny things happen to me because I look different, but and I never had the crisis of not wanting to be like I am, because I never thought I was different. That was very strange. I never, and then I looked at the mirror, and I was different. I am different, but I didn't have the sense of being different physically, I think. And in other ways, I don't feel, I feel Spanish. I mean, a Spaniard.
I will also say maybe it's related to the different kind of work that you're doing, given that both Susana and Paloma are writing journalism. There's also this necessity or this need to write about the identity a little more. But Berna, you mentioned the writing about your mother, and we already talked about the both documentaries. And I would like to make a question in this regard. Um, the three of you write as a profession, but all of you have used audiovisual media in your work. What led you to use video and audio for your work? And what would you say that you will accomplish by it in comparison with your writing?
I've only used audio bits or recordings once with Cosas que me explica mi madre, because it was at the beginning, it was a project for a radio program, a radio show. So and I also wanted to include the Chinese because the book is about my mother began to explain to me different sayings. She I don't know if they are Chinese sayings or ancient sayings, whatever. And so and I was struggling a lot of time because I didn't know what to do with that. I was trying to because writing that in Spanish didn't work somehow, and then I realized one day that it should be in Chinese, because she speaks in Chinese. I speak in Chinese to her. So and I had this opportunity to include these pieces in a radio show, and so it began like something like that. And then I was writing in Spanish. Spanish is it's not my mother tongue. I mean, I learned Spanish when I was 5, and first time I went to school. But my language, my home language is Spanish. I don't know. So the rest of the book is written in Spanish, and the first time I went to San Francisco in California, I went to Chinatown, and it didn't feel like home. Maybe because they were not speaking in Mandarin, whatever. I felt comfortable, but and then I was staying like a couple of days with a friend in Calle 24. No Spaniards, but because everybody were Latins, and I was like, this is home. because of the language. So, and I was really, really happy in Cayo 24. And it was interesting because I didn't think it was it will happen like that, you know. So
Paloma?
Berna, the best, I mean, home is where Latino Chinese people are. I mean, that's home.
yeah, well, yeah. In fact, my friend Fernando is Cuban, Chinese, American. Yeah, he was my first Chinese friend. Yeah, maybe.
That's the greatest. Like someone.
Yeah.
Like someone that can
I see.
maybe speak Chinese and English and Spanish and you can
Spanish.
yeah, and you just talk with this mixed languages. Yeah, in the sense of the language that Berna was saying, in my case, my mother language is Spanish, because when I was a kid, I actually was raised by Spanish family during some years, because my parents were like really busy with the restaurant. And then at around 5 years old, actually I went back with my Chinese parents. So I started to learn Chinese at 5. So I kind of speak fluent Chinese, but not like perfect Chinese. And yeah, I don't know, in my writing and also yeah, speaking and everything, I really like, I don't know, to mix languages, because that also yeah means home to me. And yeah, about your question, Moisés, about video and that, well, everyone in the Spanish diaspora knows that my documentary Crecer en un Chino is recorded after Susana Dia, Chiñoles y Bananas. I mean, that was my reference to me when I first watched Chiñoles y Bananas. Just like my mind exploded like again. Also when I saw, we already say that, but Quan showed her Tumblr. Yeah, and I was studying journalism, and yeah, I wanted to talk about that. And I don't know, for me, it's like sometimes I just wanna say the same, like all the time, like repeatedly, like every day, like, you know, like along my life. It's like I feel like I just have like the same things to say, but just I have to think about which language to choose, right? So sometimes it's like poetry, you know, it's like, okay, I feel this is more like poetry. Sometimes it's like, okay, I need to do a report, un reportaje, an article, a journalist article, or yeah, and with Crecer en un Chino, it was like I want to interview like a lot of different people. So for that, it's going to be so powerful, right? That there is the text part, but then also pictures and then also videos. So just actually it's just give more options, right, to the audience. I mean, you can just watch the interviews, or maybe you can just, you know, read it. Or yeah, for me in that case, in that project, it was like that.
So it's very interesting because I'm going to give you the word, Susana, now, but in both of your cases, you are putting your voice by giving the voice to the people, and not you are not participating in any of the documentaries. Neither Crecer en un Chino, you don't make the question, they are writing, and Susana, you give the voice to the people that you're interviewing. So what made you feel using this, Susana?
I used it because I think it's important to be seen, to be listened to. We are people, and I think for me it was more natural if the people could see other people. I gave voice. I didn't give voice to them. They already had it, but I just put a camera in front of it. And in my case, about your somehow question that we don't appear in our documentaries, because I think in my case it's because I I did the documentary as a journalist, and journalism here in Spain is not so much about you being seen, but about writing or reporting about people's stories. So that's number one reason why. But there's also a number two reason why. I think seeing it with perspective, with the perspective that gives me the time pass by, this 6 years in fact. I think it was because I was not ready. I was not ready to just say my own statement, because I was getting to know myself, and that's part of the reason why I did the documentary too, you know. So that's why I didn't appear on the documentary, because it was like, I'm a journalist and this is journalist, and and I don't quite understand myself still. So yeah, and in my case, I started with the documentary, but then I feel like I'm writing about the same topics that are in the documentary, but I'm kind of getting a more broad perspective about those topics. Because, for example, in the documentary, people talk about couples, interracial relationships, family, having a say about couples and future family plans. And I feel like, for example, that in my writing as a journalist, I wrote about the race fetishization, the race fetish. I don't know how to say it in English now. But that somehow was on the documentary already, somehow. And now it's like years later, I'm trying to understand about it, and I'm trying that young people that they were not in the documentary maybe kind of understand it too. So Itasai, Chino Cappuccino, talk about that too. And I think I think that's why in my case, writing is like my how to say it, it's like my nature, is where I feel more comfortable with. But I started with a documentary because for me, it was like a more natural way of getting to know these experiences for me and for other people too, I think. Because it's one thing to read about it, and it's another thing to see them and to have to listen to them. But now that part of the process somehow is done, now I'm focusing on writing. And for me, writing gives me the space to really dig into the ideas and to really give people the opportunity to really have time and to really have energy and to really have disposition to read it, and maybe if they want to, maybe to understand it.
Sadly, we don't have much time, but I wanted to make a last question before we move on to the Q&A. And I think there's already a couple of questions on the chat, but I would like to ask you about what present or future projects are you most excited about right now?
I think Paloma is like really, and I talk a lot.
Well, yeah, I think I'm super excited about publishing my first book of poems. So yeah, I'm writing that, and yeah, I'm super excited because yeah, I don't know, I have always wanted to be a writer, and and yeah, that will be the main, like, at the same time, yeah, I'm working as a journalist, and then I want to pursue a master's degree, maybe in something related to Chinese culture, maybe Chinese traditional culture, because I would really like to learn more about that and to write more about that.
Great. We will keep eye on the book. Berna?
I'm just looking for a publisher for my latest book, because it's been difficult, because it's an illustrated book. I work at the end. I work with an Iranian painter, Shirin Salehi, which is so good, and it's difficult to find someone to, because we were negotiating with one publisher, but then it didn't work, because we want to have control over the the printing, the colors, and everything else. So, and I'm not writing in this moment. I don't have much time left. I'm teaching, I'm translating, and so
Great. Susana?
Hi. But in my case, I think I'm in that transition kind of stage of my life. So I don't really have like a close project. I think I'm trying to reconnect with my more creative part of me. I'm in a really introspective moment. I'm trying to think about myself, and I'm trying to think about myself besides being a journalist, because I spent so many years just in a journalistic kind of mind, running behind the news all the time, breaking news. And it's like, okay, now breathe a little bit, think about you a little bit, find your own voice as an author. And I'm trying to reconnect with that side of me that somehow I left it behind. I don't know when exactly. I'm trying to think about me, who I am, and I'm trying to read more, because besides news, and I'm in that process. And I don't know, I'm not a person that jumps to things. I want to live the whole process, and I want to feel that it's my own experience. So I'm in that kind of position right now. Sorry for not being specific, but it's what's happening in my life. So, and yeah, but luckily I told Berna and Paloma and other people and Chenta and many people in my life that I want to explore myself besides being a journalist, and I want to write, because I always write. I kept journals, some poems and things, but I didn't have any self-confidence. So, and it was really intimate stuff, and writing is a hurtful experience. You have to really dig into your emotions, and it doesn't only involve you some of the time. So I'm trying to reconnect with that part of me that's also in me, and I'm trying to think about myself on my own terms. I think that's my answer.
Great, thank you. We sadly don't have much time, but we are going to open for the conversation for Q&A. And I'm going to give also the voice to Mary Kate, who is going to help me with this. There she is.
Hi again. Thank you so much, Paloma, Berna, Susana, for really such a wonderful conversation. We had a few questions come in the chat, and to the audience members, if there's anything else you'd like to add while we're discussing, please feel free to type it in. So the first question came from Meli, who said, related to Leila's comment above, when I am in Spanish-speaking communities, people call me chinita, and I do not like it. When I ask them to not say that, they say, pero es de cariño, or like it's meant in a loving way. Do people call you that? How do you feel about this as a term of endearment?
I don't feel it's de cariño. I mean, it's like, it's ignorance. Spanish people say also negritos instead of black people. I think it's like patronizing or something like that. It doesn't feel good. I mean, I don't feel good when they say chinita, or it's the same as when someone says ni hao, the street, or sayonara, and it's like, what? And they are, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think Paloma and Susana like it either.
It's not cool at all.
It's not
No.
cool. No.
Oh, no, not at all. There's nothing to say.
Yeah.
I think that's the answer.
The next question we have is from Rosie Song. And she says, everything that Berna says resonates a lot with me. I think it has a lot to do with generational experiences, but also inspires this question. Can we have subjectivities without identity? Are we allowed to just be? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's not that I don't have an identity. I have a fluid identity, mostly Spanish, but I also acknowledge my Chinese parents' culture and customs and you know, and whatever heritage. The only thing is that that's not a central part of myself. And as Susana said, maybe that's what it should be for everybody else. Why our identity as children of, you know, of immigrants are so central in our lives? I don't know.
I understand, Berna. I want to say it aloud. I understand, and I do think it should be that way. The thing is that history and society is not so willing to think that, you know. But I think that's the point, and that should be the situation for all of us. And I think most of the conflicts and the things that are going on comes from not allowing us that.
The thing is that also I didn't think about identity until recently, and I was beginning to think about identity and racism, and then I met you. It was like magic. And yeah, it's true. Because I was reading a bit the chat, and it is a matter of not having the words, not knowing that I experienced racism as a kid. And I did, but I didn't know that was racism. And I didn't know what to do, because it's like going home and saying, they call me Chinita or China. And my parents and I think Paloma, Susana's parents also, or something like that, said, you call them in Spanish, Españoles. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. But you cannot explain that to your parents. And yeah, and in the case of my son, when they began to call them Chinito, I said, his name is Jaime. And this next day, he was like 5 or 6. Next day, they were Jaime, because I did know what to do. And yeah.
Yeah, that's great. The next question is from Justin Ullman. Do you feel young people today, compared to Berna's generation, are more inclined or pressured into having ethnicity or race as a major part of their identity because of the political and social focus on racism and or ethnic diversity?
That's a difficult question, no? Because
I think so. I think so.
You think?
Because you are many now, and you are not the cute Chinese anymore, as I said.
But
and you are the yellow peril, and the society has changed a lot. I don't know. Well,
maybe it's because we do have the words. We do understand the culture. We are already here. It's not like we are visitors. We are part of Spain, and to be part of a country and to not just be passing by somehow. That give us another status, and that is more, for some people, they are more afraid of it, I think, maybe. But yeah, of course, I don't think racism is something new, but I do think there are political waves, and depending on the political moment, yeah, of course, race, ethnicity, identity would be put more in front, there would be more conversations about it. So I think it's a mixture of things. It's a mixture of migration in another stage, because we are not migrants, we are here, and that changes everything. And that changes their reaction to it, and that changes their interpretation about it. And also there's of course political parties focusing on some topics, easy topics, so they can gather people's fears and take advantage of it, because it's easier to blame someone than to understand the problem going on. So for me, it's like a mixture. I don't know if that answers it, but it's a complex issue, it's a complex issue because there are so many things inside it. I don't know, Paloma, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's a very complicated question, and yeah, in some sense I agree with Susana that maybe, yeah, that's kind of also natural because of the stage of migration, that we are not, that we are Spanish, right? We belong here, so we need to, yeah, be a part of that discussion, and it's kind of natural that we talk about identities and about ethnicity and everything about that. And I think it's important because now, yeah, there is some kind of, I don't know, like people, maybe some people, more I don't know, conservative people, they may think that now we talk like, I don't know, maybe too much about identities or about ethnicities, but still, let's say that now it's the time to consolidate that. Now, like, there is still a lot of people that don't recognize us, that still think that we are foreign, that we are the others. So I think we are still in that, time that we need to consolidate to still, reivindicate our identities, and at some point we will achieve that point that where we can, be more, don't talk so much about this. And yeah, and something really great that Berna said that I really like it is about the fluidity of identity. And I really like that identity don't have to be something so fixed, and depending on the circumstances, you can feel some way or feel the other.
And I do
I
think
it's,
sorry,
oh.
no.
Oh, no.
I only wanted to add that yes, it is an opportunity to talk about it now, maybe because we are there's the sensation that we are at the beginning. So maybe now is the time to have this conversation, so we can get over it. We all can get over it. That's it.
It's because, you are the real first generation of Spaniards of different origin. I mean, Spain began to change in the 90s, at the end of the 80s, and I experienced that change. And I experienced more racism from those years on, because all of a sudden there were Chinese people, people from Morocco, from Argelia, and in the 90s, and everything changed, and I felt Spaniards were more aggressive towards me, and I used to have trouble with taxi drivers, one of every 3 maybe. And I remember at the end of the 90s, I had trouble with all of them. They all tried to cheat They all thought that I was Chinese and I couldn't speak Spanish. So because all of a sudden there were a lot of people from abroad and immigrants, and then you came, thank God. I mean, you are really the first generation of people born in Spain. And yeah, of course, you are in the middle of a transition time right now.
But that's something that many people use as an excuse. Like there was no migration before this, and it's like, well, there's a reason why there was no migration. It's not that people didn't want it to go. It's way more complex than that. Sorry.
Thanks for these really interesting answers. It's so fascinating to hear about your personal experiences as well as your work. So thank you for sharing that. The next question comes from Jeffrey Coleman, who asks, what do the panelists think about representations of Spanish Chinese people made by non-Asian artists, such as Paco Becerra's play El Señor Ye ama a los dragones? If you know that.
No, what's that? No idea.
Jeffrey actually has an article about it if you'd like to read it.
Oh yeah, please send the link.
Okay.
Because yeah, no idea about.
Or other, cinematic, literary, television representations of Spanish.
That hurt. That hurt. There is this TV show, ¿cómo se llama? El hormiguero. Oh,
yeah.
I can't watch it. I watched it once in YouTube, and I think my roommate said, "Don't do that. You are going to be so angry," and I was. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, full of stereotypes and still also yellow face. That people dressing as Chinese, and I don't know, awful. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember what Chenta told us the last month about a TV show calling him to,
Yeah, I'm thinking that performers will be enticed by that kind of invitation, which is just offensive. I have a really interesting question from Yansu Kim, who asks, what do the panelists think about finding a place or breaking into the mainstream culture?
Okay, Paloma, go.
Yeah, I don't know. It's.
Do we want to be in mainstream culture? That's the question. Or what does it mean?
What is
like
the mainstream?
being read or watched by normal people? I don't know.
Well, Almodovar was counterculture until he became mainstream culture. So
okay, so mainstream culture is like everybody like it or everybody see it, and
the main channels of distribution.
Yeah.
It means, I think.
Yeah, I don't think that's a goal in itself, right?
I think no, it's not a goal, but it depends on do you want to reach everyone? Do you want the numbers of reaching a lot of people? What kind of I don't know. It depends. For me as a journalist, I mentioned journalist a lot, sorry, but it's it. For me as a journalist, yeah, I aim to be in the mainstream, and I aim to reach a lot of different kind of people that maybe they think they are not interested in those kind of topics, but for me it doesn't matter. I have to talk about it. So in my case I aim to that, but I do not think it should be the only goal. I do not think that,
No.
because if you adapt yourself so much to the numbers, then that end, no way to go. No way to go. So I think, yeah, me as a journalist, I have to aim for that. But maybe me as an author, if I find the time and the energy, I wouldn't aim to that. Why? Why do I have to adapt my voice, my style to the numbers? Why? It's not. I don't think it's something honest with ourselves. No, Berna?
Yeah, I mean, but I'm still not sure about what's mainstream. Is Radio 3 mainstream?
Somehow it is.
Somehow, because
Yeah.
I was writing for Radio 3 for a long time, and many people know me because of La Mirada Oblicua.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm reading the chat. If the mainstream culture is El Hormiguero, please don't try to join. Now, of course. I don't know. I'd like to be myself. I think that we all want to be ourselves and not be rejected or something like that. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. But it's, I don't know, it's like mainstream. We have to define mainstream. Which kind of mainstream?
El Hormiguero.
If
El
it's
Hormiguero,
El
Radio
Hormiguero,
3.
if it's El Hormiguero, then no, big no.
Yeah.
No, please.
Radio 3 is cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But in a way, La RAE is also mainstream.
Okay, I have to teach. I teach basic writing skills, and I have to teach the rules of the RAE, of the Real Academia Española. But I always say I'm not how do you say that? Prescriptivista. I mean, I don't follow the rules. I use the neutral, non-binary language in my writings, not in my translations, but because, but I do have to teach the rules so my students can break them.
I will put the video of Paloma's intervention to explain.
So the thing about the RAE is that, okay, that is mainstream, but because I was there like criticizing that, maybe they don't call me anymore. You know?
Sadly, I don't think we have much time to continue. There's a lot of questions that we have here in the draft, but we didn't have time to make. Thank you very much, Paloma. Thank you very much, Berna. Thank you very much, Susana, for your time, and thank you all the people who joined. Thank you, Mary Kate. We invite you to keep the conversation going. We are going to upload the references, and we are also going to submit this video on YouTube very soon. Please join us in our last event next in April 14th. We are going to talk about education and activism, and thank you all, and see you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.